For undocumented immigrants, the start of the new year was marked by a wave of panic as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents, conducted raids across the country. The surge in raids is part of a new program from the Department of Homeland Security that targets Central American immigrants who've come in huge numbers to the United States in the past 2 years. Escalating violence in countries like El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, where dictatorships and the war on drugs happen to have been heavily shaped by United States intervention, have sent many families across the border in search of asylum. In response, ICE is entering residential areas and tailing undocumented immigrants at work, concentrating operations in Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia.
La niña dormía cuando ellos llegaron y fueron, la despertaron. Y la niña nunca ha visto más que la cara de su madre o de su hermana mayor cuando se despierta. Y esta vez presenció la presencia de dos oficiales a cuando fue lo primero que ella vio.
Renee Morales, whose sister and niece were among the more than 100 immigrants deported since the new year, says that the new round of deportations has many in the community on edge.
No presentarse sin ninguna explicación, sin dar ninguna razón y llegar agresivamente a la casa de uno, porque realmente uno también tiene sus derechos. No veo el motivo por qué actuaron de esa manera.
Fear of raids and apprehensions has expanded far beyond where Morales lives in Georgia. Here in Maryland, undocumented residents that live and work outside of the nation's capital have been shaken up by the news.
La mayoría de las personas ahorita temen al salir por lo mismo de que han escuchado que hay mucha migración alrededor.
This Baltimore resident was one of the only people to agree to speak on camera with the Real News. Many are afraid to even go out into the street, let alone speak on camera, even under the condition of anonymity.
Hemos escuchado que hay muchas personas muchos familiares que andan tristes porque sus familias han sido deportadas.
30 minutes away in Hyattsville, Maryland, the culture of fear is intensifying. The Casa de Maryland sits in the middle of a large Hispanic residential area. Here, people can get help finding work and English classes. But lately, CASA has been dealing with victims of ICE's indiscriminate searches through their hotline call center.
This is very shameful. This is a slap to the community. We're very angry of the measures that President Obama is taking at this point.
DHS hasn't confirmed any operations in Maryland, but CASA itself has already recorded about a dozen incidents, a handful of which result in apprehensions.
So far, we have received reports of 9 people being taken into custody.
Many Latin American immigrants feel betrayed by President Obama, who ran on a platform of a path to citizenship. Instead, a record-setting 2 million people have been deported during his administration.
And it's very shameful that the administration is actually targeting immigrants and family and women that are just looking for a better life and that are looking for staying alive. We have seen the spike on death and murder in places like in El Salvador. It's higher than it has never been before. And, people are very scared. People are dying in their countries. People have family members who are being murdered if they don't pay a rent from the gang, or they pretty much don't have any other option by fleeing from there. Go away from a place where they're being oppressed and where they can be killed. And for people out there, just to know, all of them know what a refugee is. And this is what these families from Central America are. They're refugees that are looking to stay alive.
The stores, restaurants, streets, and playgrounds here are empty during times like these. This undocumented woman who works in a kitchen nearby Casa says the chilling effect makes living more difficult.
Este fin de semana vimos la diferencia aquí en nuestro trabajo. No vino mucha gente como sabía venir a comer. Mucho miedo por la situación que está viviendo hoy estos días. La gente no quiere salir. No quiere, sus padres que tienen niños no los quieren mandar a la escuela por el miedo.
And this woman was in one of these apartment buildings when ICE raided it. They had a warrant for someone neither she nor any of her neighbors had heard of.
Ya escuchando 3-4 veces el golpe más fuerte en la puerta, me asusté y me levanté a ver a la ventana quién era. Lo que miré era que andaban policías de civiles, no eran ni policías, sino que al frente decía policía y en la parte de atrás decía ICE.
The indiscriminate raids prompted activists earlier this month to protest the White House's decision to turn a blind eye to a practice they say separates families and leads others to certain death back in their home countries.
We have to remember that white people were not indigenous to America. They came here as settlers. So how dare you turn around and tell indigenous communities in this country that they don't belong here? So anyways, I asked Obama to stop these raids. But I also say for the larger country that we live in, stop saying that people are illegal. Stop turning around and using your racism and xenophobia to criminalize communities.
How can President Obama sit by, be silent about this?
How do you respond to people who say that his hands are tied? I mean,
they're not. That's the beauty. That's why we're here. He has the absolute executive authority to make a phone call, stop the raids, make a phone call, and grant temporary protective status, TPS status, to all of these families.
Last week, the Supreme Court announced it would rule by June on whether or not Obama's executive actions on immigration from 2 years ago are constitutional, but whether expanding DACA and DAPA, which defer deportations for immigrant children and parents, will do much to change the state of limbo many families find themselves in is a question that won't be answered in the near future.
Cuando mi hija me dice, mamá, ¿qué es deportación? Si me deportan, yo no vuelvo acá, no sé con quién te vas a quedar, porque el gobierno no me va a decir que sí, mis 3 hijos me los va a mandar. El gobierno no me va a decir que mis hijos van a estar en un lugar estable con alguien que yo pueda decidir. El gobierno lo que puede hacer es mandarlo a una casa, hogar de niños, y ver qué es lo que hace con mis hijos.